Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Tuesday Tech Talk for Parents. We are in our third session, and today will be about parent controls, browser history, password security a little bit, but mainly monitoring and guidance detective. So we are recording this session, and if you can also, a reminder to be muted, please use the chat box for questions, and then turn on closed caption. Of course, if you would like, you can use the raise your hand feature, and I will have a chat box monitor or a screen monitor that will remind me when I need to call on somebody or answer a question verbally. Ms. Rashid will be our chat box monitor along with Ms. Briseño, Kelly Briseño from the middle school. We also have with us today Dr. Seiden from the upper school, and Mr. Basile from administration. So it's lovely to have everybody with us today, because today's monitoring and guidance, I'm going to capture kind of what we do here at school on protective layers for our community, and then reflect on what we can do at home and kind of match those, even though they look or the words are different, but they're similar things that you can do. Okay, so let's get started. School policies and organization to protect our community. Things we do here at school. We have different layers. The first layer is a firewall protection. So if you think about something that just is like a brick wall and information's coming in, there's always a layer before it gets to our system. We have monitors, we have alerts, and the IT team takes care of that. Just a quick little explanation of our IT team. There's a group of people who are dedicated IT, and then there's a group of people, three of us, that are dedicated to academic technology. But the two groups work together in conjunction to protect our community, to inform our community, and we'll go through that a little bit more. Another software we use is Sophos, antivirus, anti-malware, and phishing prevention. This does a little bit more, but those are the things that I pulled from it that are a little bit more understanding of layman terms. I have learned a lot in this little process of what the school does on the back end. Okay, so those are two things that are just preventative measures. Be similar to if I have Comcast, I use their router. They have a little filter set up for me, and then firewall protection kind of blocks that as it comes in through my system. We have device management. Pre-K to 2 have iPads. Grades 3 through 12 have laptops. Teachers have laptops and iPads. So all of these things are managed by a software that the IT has. And then they can do many different things. They can install software. They can make sure that we have the antivirus and anti-malware on our computer. They can remotely check things if they need, okay? And then they can push out apps and software. Very similarly with the Apple Device Manager. These two things, Jamf and Apple, work together. Apple on its own has something, but Jamf is a little bit more umbrella to what our needs are. And then we have an organized classification of accessing databases. Only people who need to get to wherever they need to access information have those access codes or policies to get there. So there's the community at the top, admin or certain admin, and then everything else is protected. And then, so if you think about MySA and the information that is stored on MySA, not everybody can get to that information. And then we have archived analytics. And for G Suite, this is amazing. So even down to the teacher level, last week I shared with you a little bit of docs and maybe how you can kind of see the history there. And you can actually click on version history to see what happens in your students' homework or reports, and what time they worked on anything, what changes have they made. Teachers use that a lot to cross-reference, to make comments, to make additions. In the G Meet, we have analytics, just even when students log in. When did they log in? When did they log out? When did they unmute themselves? Those kind of reports, again, are at a layer that you have to request if something is needed, or comments something that you need to pull from it. We get all those analytics with our G Suite for Education subscription. And we also get a layer of protection for G Suite. They do not sell any of our information. There's no access because we're under the umbrella of education. So I'm going to pause there. If we have any questions, that's the layer in which the school provides protection. Okay. So now we go into the education portion of that. We have teachers who are level 1 certified, which means it's a lot of skill sets. What can you do for Google and in Google for Education? And then we also have ISTE, is an organization where we have certified educators, and we actually have 3 of us on this call. We are 3 of 1,000 in the world. We went through a training and then a series of 9-month portfolio work to try to really capture what it means to have these standards, implement them in school, and then also on the back end, educate our community. So our job is to educate, evaluate, and engage. We work with different groups, different people in our community. And today, as you can see, we're working on educating our parent groups. School policies that protect our community. Our acceptable use policy, those are located in your handbooks, your divisional handbooks. So those are what can you do with your devices or school software, what is not acceptable and acceptable. And then also we have an approved app and software list that goes through quite a bit of stage. So I took a little bit of the vetting process just to explain that. The GIF on the right, it's just a little video clip, is our approved software app list. So teachers can access that. They can see what we already have available, what we may subscribe to, and then how it is coded on if it passes some privacy. Everything that is on this list passes the vetting process. Now, whether the layers, we like to see certain things called COPA or FERPA. Those are really good, especially for lower school students. So part of the vetting process is that teachers and administrators submit a form. They would like to try an app or request a purchase of an app. Then it comes to us as academic technology coaches, and then we evaluate it. We take a little bit of, a process to go to Common Sense Media. What do they say about it? We look at their privacy protection. Do they have FERPA and COPA policies in there? So we take a look, do they sell data? Where are their servers stored? We like to make sure that our community is protected on any software or apps that we use here with our community. Once it passes compliance check, then it moves to another stage, which budgeting and implementation, which we do not have a part of as much. So we make our recommendations, and then those different groups or subgroups can then make the decision on whether it will be implemented or not. And if it is, then we put it on our approved software list. So what does that mean to you as parents? It means that you should also look at the privacy policies of the games, online games, social media. We always click yes, because if you hit no, you can't sign up. So one of the things that we do is if they're under the age of 13 and they have to create a login, that's where we want these acronyms COPA to be, because under the age of 13 is really sensitive just for age. We want to make sure there's no ads that are inappropriate, and we want to make sure that they don't have access to pop-ups or external links that might take them somewhere else. So as a parent, check those policies. Where are the servers located? What information are they pulling? Oftentimes, you're setting up an account or your child sets up an account and it says age 13 and up. So what you do is you set the birth date so that it makes it okay for them to register. And we used to do that. I remember 10 years ago, I taught 5th grade in another school in another state, and they did that. They created accounts and we were piloting, and I had no idea about FERPA and COPA. And I also was not compliant in my own teachings and saying that these are acceptable use issues and I need to be a better teacher and I need to teach my constituents that. So I would really push on my students now. They shouldn't sign up without parent consent. Changing your birth date doesn't help. So if you have to change your birth date, it may need to be signed up under the parent's name, and then the child gets to use it. So again, these are suggestions and these are parenting choices that you make and just suggestions that I'm giving you.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
We have a question in the chat box.
Okay.
Holly Robinson asks, thanks. My kids came home very concerned that Roblox suddenly appeared on their school iPads because they've been told that Roblox is hackable and thus dangerous to have. I assured them that nothing can be downloaded to their iPads because they're locked down. So can you or Mr. Basile address that concern?
Yep. So it is on there. So Roblox, I'm not sure where they came the hackable and the dangerous to have, because you can have it right with guidance. And that's what we're trying to say. Like, all of this is, students can have these things, and the age, even though there's recommendations, doesn't mean as a parent or family that you can't be playing these things. But Mr. Bergman has found Roblox for Education, and which was cool. It got vetted, and there's a whole nother set that is for building. They're actually going to be building things, not just playing the game. So they're going to, I believe it's going to be similar to Minecraft. So I was part of that vetting process. We took a look at it, and it'll be cool once they kind of get to play with it a little bit more. So IT pushes the app out, and then Mr. Bergman will give information on how to use that app and how usernames and things like that work. Okay. All right. Thank you. That was a good question. What are these acronyms then for? So we have COPA, FERPA, and GDPR. Those are all acronyms that I have mispronounced, misspelled, never saw until I came to St. Andrews, or never engaged. Maybe I saw them, but I didn't know them. So we really tried to work with our teachers to know that there's a policy. What are they? Just so you're aware of it. These are all government policies to protect our children and their personal information. So it is most important at the youngest ages, 13 and younger. Why they picked 13? I think it was a maturity thing, maybe, because once you see something, you can't unsee it. So at the younger ages, if something were to occur, it can have a little bit of traumatic impact. And I'm assuming that 13 seems to be a general age where the maturity line is okay if something were to occur. But that actually, I might go look into why age 13 now that I think about it. So the government protection policies are COPA, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Again, we like to see those, especially with apps or softwares we use in lower school. And that goes partway through middle. And because it's not a grade, there's some kids that might be 13 and 7th grade. We don't have a grade cutoff. So sometimes it goes all the way to 8th grade, or it just picks up in that the software is okay to use in upper school, depending on what it is. Then we have FERPA. These are things like your report cards and your data that is in there. That's why if you were to transfer schools, there's a lot of processes and procedures to get that information to transfer to another school. And then GDPR, this is a European Union policy. And while it's from Europe, we want to make sure that we are also compliant as much as we can be with them, because they're very strict. They have a little bit stricter guidelines. A lot of our software companies in America want people in the world to play, so they do try to become compliant. And it's nice to have just another feature or policy to compare to. Okay. So you can learn more on this when I share the slide deck later. You can click to learn more. It'll take you straight to those websites. So examples that we take, Ms. Briseño and Dr. Seiden both have examples of things that they have done to reach out to companies that may not be compliant, but we want to use their software or their app. This one was Moat, and Moat was just an audio add-on that you can use for docs or slides. And we really thought last year during online learning initially, this would have been awesome. Instead of just typing, that you could hear your teachers' voices, that you could hear your students' voices. The problem was that it was not compliant at all, or at much with ages 13 and younger. So I reached out to the company and I said, hey, I'd really like to use this with my younger students, but you're not under this compliance. What do you think about looking into it? And you can see the reply there was like, thank you. We don't sell their information, we promise, but we're just a startup company and we don't really have that allocation of time or money. Well, not even a month later. So May 13th, I think it's 13 days, we just happened to be browsing as a team looking for something, and we noticed that they had updated their privacy policy. And so it was really cool to see that. And then officially, they released a statement on July 13th that they are COPPA compliant, and then now the California Student Privacy Certified. So those are really cool steps that we love to see and we feel good about ourselves that we take just for our own community. I'm sure we have other examples that we have done in the past. This one was the most recent. Any questions there so far? Okay. So again, Moat, an add-on, was not compliant, became compliant, and then all of a sudden it can go on our acceptable use or our approved software list, and teachers and students can both use it. I'm gonna take a breath here because this is something that we're gonna go a little bit deeper before we go into some parent suggestions and guidance. So virtual private network is a VPN, and what you'll hear the acronym VPN a lot, and it's just a different connection. I had to actually do some research for my understanding of how it works. I kind of knew what it was, but to know that the kids know what it is interesting. And to know that even a 10th grader I was talking to was like, oh yeah, I used a VPN in 5th grade to get around the firewall so that I could play this game I wanted to play because it was blocked. And so now there's a little bit more policy on VPNs here at our school. So a VPN, again, is to establish a secure connection. A lot of people in other countries use this to get around their network in those countries where they're not allowed to do things. There's more restrictions there. But for the most part, they do it, even though this graph shows it, to keep my anonymity while browsing. To keep anonymous is a lot of it. And so, yes, you want to access social networks that are being blocked or websites that are being blocked. But being anonymous is probably one that I see more often. My husband works for an agency that does a lot with dark web and the selling of drugs on the dark web. And so he shared with me this DEA takes iTeam Inside operation, and I'll let you view that on your own. And it's just about the things that happen on the dark web, illegal sales. And the only way to get to the dark web is through a VPN. And so while our kids may not be doing things on the dark web or accessing, those are gateways that could lead it into high school. And so you want to make sure when you're looking at your kids' devices or things that they don't have VPNs on there or they're not installed on their phone so that they can get around your firewalls or your protections that you've set up. So this one, Tor, is an example of one that I found that's very common, and its theme is, or its tagline is, browse privately, browse freely. Now, most people are starting to use these naturally just because they don't want people collecting their information. I feel that. I used to be the person who's like, take it all. What do I have to lose? My bank account is secure. If you take money, it'll be a process, but I'll get it back because I use a bank that has that protection. But over time, what's happening now is data mining. So they're collecting all your information, and it may not be for now, it's for the future. So a lot of people are starting to have those privacy heightened awareness and wanting a browser that does not collect its information. It does not collect where you click to. Everything is kind of incognito. And even Chrome has an incognito feature, but Chrome is by Google, and Google has a lot of information. So DuckDuckMoose, I believe, would be another kind of browser that does not track information. But this Tor is a VPN that would allow you to make that connection to the dark web. So that's kind of the dark and dirty with where it could lead to with the olders. But since we are talking about the youngers, I just wanted you guys to have an awareness of what a VPN is and how it's used. So I'll take a moment there. Any questions? All right, so again, grades 4 and 5 students, some of them, not all of them, already know how to use a VPN. Again, they're just trying to play games and get around things that are not allowed. At St. Andrews, students cannot use VPNs on our network. Those are blocked. So what can you do at home? At home, especially for VPNs, you know what it is now. Okay, so you can kind of be on a lookout on what happens with the VPN. Talk to your child about internet safety, set rules and expectations, and then just browse your devices, check for them. Bark is linked an article about VPNs for parents, so you can see more from that article. And again, it's just about educating yourself and knowing what your students or your children have access to. You're going to see a theme here, right? Know what it is, talk, set rules, check. You'll see this theme in the next couple of slides.
Ms. Jones, can I pause you here just to share a comment?
Yeah.
I feel like when we see this as a parent, it feels like I already have enough to do as a parent. Now you want me to go on devices, places where I'm not, places I hardly know how to navigate. So I feel like one of the really important things that we just need to remember, which is, and has nothing to do with technology, is just talking to our kids about choosing to do the right thing even when nobody's looking, right? It just made me feel much more comfortable when I could talk to that's something I can talk to my kid about, and it's a conversation. It has nothing to do with me digging anywhere or being places I don't know how to be. So I thought I'd share that.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Rashid. Actually, I'm going to pause there. I had a little poll set up. If you are able to access the poll, it is the triangle, the square, and the circle near the chat box. If you're on a phone, I am unsure where that might be located. But you can answer the poll. I answered. So the question is, has your child reported to you that they have seen something inappropriate online? But I kind of I made the choices broader than yes or no. It would be, my child told me they saw something inappropriate. I asked the kids this. It wasn't a survey where they would dot. I just had conversation with them. I asked them, do you tell a parent when this happened? We're going to talk about that more in our very last session and what they said. So right now I'm kind of gathering information from you all. My child has seen something inappropriate, but I found out using the browser history or otherwise, saying you found out accidentally or you were looking for it, right? Or just checking. I don't think my child has seen anything inappropriate. You're not sure, right? You haven't looked. They haven't told you. That's me. Again, I have a 5- and 6-year-old. I don't think I've seen them or I've heard them hear language that's inappropriate, but maybe never seen something. And then I know that my child has not seen anything inappropriate. So we have 17 people on this, and we have 5, 6, 7 votes. There we go. And I believe if you go there, you can see the answers. As soon as you submit, you'll be able to see what the polling looks like. And there's more people that actually watch the recordings on these, and I'd like to gather that information too. So when we have this conversation, I can help guide you on what the students said. And some of it is why they don't come to you. I thought that was really interesting. So we'll get back to that in a little bit. But 5, I don't think my child has seen anything inappropriate. Have we had these conversations, right? Have we asked? So yeah, again, what is inappropriate? There's age inappropriateness. The kids, I let them self-define that in class. It definitely depended on the age. So in grade 5, they were like, oh, yes. And, in grade 2, they were like, well, is that bad words? And then I just let them, I just said, yeah, that could be bad words. So it kind of depended. I let them lead me in those conversations. So definitely something to think about as we move through these things. All right. Oh, yes, Mr. She, don't overreact. Don't give away my spoiler alerts. Those are in the last session. I need everybody to come back to that last one right before spring break. So here's some privacy and parenting controls for gaming. Most of the ones that I've looked into, Nintendo, they all have time limits. I thought that was interesting. Yes, time is a parent control. I want to set time because it's easier for me to just set the time limit. It goes off and it shuts it down. We use Alexa to set timers, those kind of things. Yeah, you have 15 minutes, you can play this game and then move on from there. I think that's the most common parent control for gaming. And even in my my router at home, it's time. What I wanted was filters. I want to say I want it to be age appropriate. I want only the YouTube videos that are not YouTube Kids. It's okay if they're on regular YouTube, but I want to select for them what they can see. And that's very tough. So again, Bark may have some of those features. It's hard to explore when you haven't subscribed to it. So if anybody has subscribed to that, that'd be great to hear from you. Accepting and limiting online friends, making sure that those accounts are private and you have to accept the friends. We talked about that with the students, not being friends with anyone you don't know. We'll talk about that more next week on what they told me there. Chatting online, you can limit the chat box, like in Roblox, you can turn it off. That seems to be the area of contention with the younger students, or grades 2, 3 is that chat box. Like drama happens in the chat box because they can't speak. And so things are being said in the chat box and maybe they're being misconstrued, or the words that they're using are not nice. That seemed to be a theme there. And then always check the content ratings and how that fits your family values. If you click on the PC Mag article from Common Sense Media, it gives you a lot more information on how to set those parent controls and privacy. So we talk about privacy as your data and how do they share, or how do you share? Could be even location settings. So here's some more suggestions for monitoring and controlling devices. The first thing is you can always just kind of check the browser history on an iPad. You want to check Chrome, Firefox, Safari. We have kids that we're always in Chrome and maybe they use Safari because it's not right on their dock to kind of browse other things. That's something they would do. How to find YouTube history. So you can't technically filter only what you want to see. You can block things, but you have to specifically block it. But you could just, kind of peruse the YouTube history. What are they actually watching? And then in Roblox, turn on the parent controls. Check those out. Here's a little video clip for that. The next 2 things was have regular check-ins and conversations at home. Those can be the biggest things. Like Mr. She said, just talking about what to do when no one's looking. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about technology. It could be at school, in the park. So we try to talk about those analogies, meeting friends in parks. What happens when you meet friends online? Those kind of scenarios. And then if they have social media, I would definitely recommend just checking them out once in a while, checking their direct messages, checking the friends list. Do they have friends on there that you don't know or they can't explain who they are? And then search for Finsta. As they get older, they'll make a fake Instagram. So they'll make one for you that you might follow or share. And then they'll make one that's very similar, different picture, that they actually have friends on and they post actual things. And then they can control who sees their story even. So if you are a friend and I'm posting a story, I can actually just block you from seeing my story and everybody else can see my story. Very interesting, those settings. Snapchat, very similar. You can only send it to certain friends. And then screenshots or pictures of other DMs or of the app is how it gets shared. So students think because it has a time limit and it kind of expires that it goes away. I did not chat with them about that so much in grade 5. Snapchat really wasn't as much as Instagram. But it's definitely something that happens through middle and high school. All right, so taking a deep breath for myself, And for you, because this is a lot to digest, parenting is exhausting. I've only been doing it for 6 years and I am tired. So for those of you who have older student or children, it's managing, and we all know we have to pick and choose our battles. So again, like Ms. Rashid said, we can't always be looking. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to know. So here's some small tips to help manage tech life. And it's easier said than done, because these are all things I'm telling you, and there are many things that I don't do and I want to be better at. So here we go. The first one is create a technology contract with your child or children and review it often. Bring it back. What's age appropriate now for my 5 and 6-year-old may not be, it may expire by the time they're in 2nd grade. How does that change? Kind of talk to them about it. These are their expectations. You don't even have to say their rules, their expectations. Come up with the list with them. That's how we do school rules in class. They come up with what their guiding device usage might be, what time limits they think are appropriate, and have them buy in. The next one would be set a regular calendar alert to check devices. If you're somebody who doesn't kind of peruse those devices, maybe you need an alert just to check in once a month, see what they're doing, kind of look at that. Keep devices in your bedroom at night. This came from a parent blog that I read, and also came from a grade, I want to say maybe 5 chat, that a parent had an issue with their children staying up late at night chatting. And what happened was the parents would go to bed and they were just up all night. So my sister-in-law was in middle school when I started teaching, and I had lived with them for a little bit, and they had put her phone on the kitchen counter. Well, let me tell you that she did not sneak downstairs and go get that after her parents went to bed. So while she was compliant by putting her phone on the kitchen counter, and her phone was on the kitchen counter in the morning when they woke up, there was some in between time that she would come down, get her phone, answer a couple of things, and then put it back. So you might want to keep those devices in your room until they're of age that you think that they can manage the devices themselves. Okay. Subscribe to parent newsletters, Bark or Common Sense. They have great ones. They're periodical. You can always set them to, once a month, or if once a week is too much. I don't think Bark sends one all the time. I think it's once a month, but anything to just kind of keep you knowledgeable, okay, and where they are. Have scenario conversations with your children. So the what ifs. I did this with the students. I said, what if someone came up to you, a stranger, in the park? What would you do? And they were like, run away. And then we talked about, what if a stranger came up to you in the middle of Roblox and started asking you questions? What would you do? And they said, run away. And then we talked about the park, and would they talk to an adult that it happened? And they said, yes. And I said, do you tell an adult when that happens online? Many of them say no. We'll talk about that more in our last session, but we'll talk about why that occurs maybe. But we do have those conversations with your own children, maybe dinner conversations, and just do the what if questions. And then use the village. Remember, it's exhausting. The management is tough. It's tiresome. Ask, reach out and ask. I love that this parent put it in a group chat that she was struggling with a device in the middle of the night. And a couple of parents are like, take the device. You own the device. They're little. They don't own the device. You pay the bill, you bought it, however it works. But you have the authority to take the device. So what do other parents do? I would love to have, in our last session, a little breakout room that we can have advice or helpful tips for each other. But grade level chat groups, ask your questions. Go to online parent groups. Facebook, Boca Moms, they ask questions all the time, or Boca Parent Group now, I think they call it. Just throw your questions out there and you get a slew of answers. Now, the problem would be maybe you have too many different voices coming at you. But, it takes all of this to kind of work through where our kids are, and then what they have at their fingertips. So your tools and takeaways for today is to be vigilant. You just got to stay on top of it. And when do the best you can. Remember, they're quicker and smarter. So right now it's Roblox. Before it was Angry Birds. Whatever, it's going to be something in a couple of years. We can't always know everything. But what we have on them is the year's experience. And so we kind of were there in their shoes, just the scenarios may be different. And so use that with them, but always just, I think the line of communication is going to be to your advantage. Okay. Here are your actual takeaways. The family guide, the family link guide, the digital well-being family guide, and the Google's privacy tools for at-home devices. These are all quick reads with really great tips. And then there's even scenario-based things in that digital well-being where you can kind of ask the scenario and then use it for dinner conversation or car rides or things like that. Okay. Any questions there for tools and takeaways? All right.
Where do you put these?
Pardon?
Where do you put these resources?
I email them out after.
Thank you.
And then I do link them to the Wednesday Weekly. So they'll be in the Wednesday Weekly tomorrow morning if I get it in the next 30 minutes. And then I also place them in the lower school parent group, and you can access them there as well. Okay. The last thing I want to leave you with is password. I didn't have a whole lot of time to explain how to set up a good password. So I borrowed from Ms. Briseño's orientation training for middle school students, how they suggest passwords should be set. And it's a really cool little tutorial on picking like an acronym and staying with it. And you just change out the middle letters there. So you could take a look at that and start working on this. This is what I hope to do with grade 3, 4, 5 next year. Now that hopefully if we have proper orientation and we're not starting online again. So fingers crossed there. Any other questions, comments, or concerns for the good of our community and parenting? Otherwise, thank you. Thank you for coming today and logging in, and thank you for viewing if you are watching the recording. We'll see you next Tuesday.